Golden Spiral Media presents The Blacklist Exposed.
Hello, special agents. You have come to the right place. Welcome to The Blacklist Exposed. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs. We are here with a special edition of The Blacklist Exposed with our Season 1 special archive episodes. The following episode appeared on the TV Talk Network for Season 1 of The Blacklist, and we're bringing it to you here on The Blacklist Exposed, remastered and used with permission from TV Talk. We hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy this special episode from Season 1.
You're tuned in to TV Talk, The Blacklist. Welcome to TV Talk, America's #1 TV talk show network. And now it's time for TV Talk, The Blacklist.
Well, Tom got schooled at a teacher convention while Red is giving advice about when and when not to kill people. I guess those are both things of irony. Welcome to TV Talk, The Blacklist. I'm Troy.
And I'm Dave, here to discuss number 57 on the Blacklist, The Judge, airing March 3rd, 2014.
Once again, shouting out to all the listeners tuning in via iHeartRadio. Make sure you heart TV Talk and TV Talk, The Blacklist as you go about your day today listening to all your favorites.
And remember, you can also find the show via Stitcher, iTunes, and it's always available through the free TV Talk app for iOS and Android.
Did you know that Tom is a bad guy?
If there was ever any doubt, it's not any longer, right?
No, and the question here, of course, becomes, is Tom a bad guy? You know, at the end, we've been pulling for Red this entire time, and we don't know if Red's agenda is really a good agenda at the end of the day, even though these criminals are pretty bad people. So where is Tom going to fall on the scale of good guy, bad guy, or is it all up to interpretation at that point?
You know, that's what this show does. Everyone seems to have their own end game, but we don't know what any of those end games are yet at this point. So you don't know who to trust. And
it was great how they kind of progressed and just gave us this story about the judge through the course of the evening. But I think the one thing that really stood out the most was when Harold and Red were sitting in the office towards the end of the episode. And Harold and Red are kind of having this conversation about the war coming. And there's two things that Red said that really caught my eye. And Red was basically commenting on, well, there was this incursion to the post office. And then, of course, there was Diane's death. So where I'm going with this is that Red killed Diane. So if we replay to that conversation with Diane, and he said that basically Fitch and him have an arrangement, we don't. I now go back and wonder, did Red set up the entire Ansel Garrick thing through Finch just to prove a point to Harold or something?
Putting it together in that fashion, you could certainly end up at that point. Yes. Again, we have nothing to base that on other than conjecture.
Because now that we have this new player in town with Tom and Lucy Brooks, which we've now, I guess you can call it confirmed, right? Because we had our first guest star of the evening, the one Lance Reddick. You might have remembered him as Mr. Broyles from Fringe or Mr. Abaddon from Lost. I think he was also Big Papa in American Horror Story, if I'm correct, Dave.
Yep, that's correct. He was just recently, he just wound that up. It was just a little guest starring thing, but he was really creepy in that.
So they're basically sitting in the car, and Red, of course, hands over the obit column for Lucy Brooks and says she's going by the name of Jolene Parker. So I'm going to assume at that point that they've pretty much identified that Jolene is Lucy Brooks.
You know, and what really was more fascinating than anything else is you certainly got the feeling that like Red was going to put a hit out on her, but he doesn't want her dead or brought in. He just wants to know what she's up to.
So actually what was more intriguing was the fact that two grown men could have measuring contests, only this time it's about what hat size they have.
Very well done.
So what was great about it was Hal, I think we're calling him Hal, said, you know, don't tell me how to do my job. You do yours, I'll do mine, which is pretty much the same thing he kind of told, that Red told Diane, was that, you know, Fitch does his thing and I do my thing, so we don't really question each other. So he pretty much just lets Hal go on looking for all the stuff they need to confirm that Lucy Brooks is definitely a bad enigma, I guess, in this entire scope of the show.
He's able to go off and kind of snoop through her apartment because she's at a teacher convention with Tom, conveniently enough.
Well, I think that was the one thing that got confirmed from last week, because we were wondering why he was getting handed a badge, right? So now we know he's at this teachers conference in Orlando, and they're just chumming it up like Liz doesn't even exist in the picture.
Yeah, it's definitely very flirty. I think even more so on Jolene's part than on Tom's part. She's definitely letting her availability be known.
Well, now I'm a parent, so I still have this kind of fear of, letting my child go to the bathroom on his own, because he's still in that 6 to 8 range. And now I think I'm going to walk my child to the bathroom every time.
You never know what you'll find when you open that door.
Never in a million years. It's like, Mommy,
but
Daddy.
that was kind of surprising because that whole scene came, she's kind of flirting with Tom. It ends with him going, but I've done nothing wrong. And then the next scene we see is them in the men's room, not using the bathroom in the way in which it was meant.
No, not at all. And the really fun thing about this is that he sits at the bar later and he's kind of thinking about, shouldn't I go upstairs? And then he goes upstairs to meet with her, and the only reason you're going upstairs is to do one thing, right? You're not going to
exactly.
You're not going to go upstairs and have a conversation about, I can't do this because I love my wife. If you're going to do that, you just don't show up. Here he's going up there with the intent purpose, and then he's like, oh no, I love my wife. And it's like, no, you don't, because what do we find out? It's not your wife.
Yeah, and that's kind of the shocking thing, because, and this is, again, one of these things that this show does very well, because we're all expecting Tom to just go up there and, get it on with Jolene. Instead, he appears to be taking a stance for his relationship with Liz, and then to turn it, where you think, oh my gosh, that's great, what a stand-up guy. And then Jolene goes, no, you're not. She's not even your wife. And then his true, I don't want to say identity, because we still don't know his true identity, but the part he's been playing is made very evident.
Yeah, and I really love the way that both Johns and the writers are doing this up, because, we all said from day one that Tom was a bad guy. And all throughout the season, even when they captured him and took him into the post office and interrogated him, you start to sit there and go, well, maybe Tom is a good guy. I kind of like Tom. He's going to take her undercover before she goes undercover, and you're starting to pull from him. And then, of course, nope, he was a bad guy. We were right all along.
He's a bad guy. And I guess we'll have to wait till next episode to find out just how bad he is. But it's not looking good, is it?
So now the things start to kind of come together, or maybe not, depending on how you want to look at it. Because now I have to wonder, Mr. Apple Eater, because Red had the cleaning lady come and basically clean up after that situation to kind of get all the cameras out and everything. So my guess now is that either Tom put the cameras in place, or Tom's bosses put the cameras in place without Tom knowing they were there.
Right. I'm leaning more towards your second statement.
But they were definitely not Red's people, because otherwise why would Red come in and try to pretend that didn't happen?
Exactly.
Or at the end of the day, is Tom and Red both working for the same party? They just don't know it yet.
That's also very possible.
Which do you like?
I think I'd like the latter statement. I think it'd be really cool to find out that they are both working for the same entity but unaware of it. That would be really interesting, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, and it kind of goes back to this alias concept with, John Eisendrath bringing what he knows, and this whole concept that they had on that show with the 12, and that there was this group of people that would basically help control the world and the supply of, arms races and wars and things of that nature. So it'd be really great to find out that somewhere along the way, everybody is reporting up to Mr. Finch in one way or the other.
It could definitely go there. The one
conversation I thought was really interesting, though, tonight, was the conversation he has with his old Naval College roommate, and how that something that happened while they were in the Navy at that point. They basically set up his entire exit strategy from the Navy, almost like funding his operation, and that's why a bunch of people got sidelined for it. I wonder if more of that story is going to come into play on how all of this kind of ties together before the season wraps up.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting how he kept his word to Richard when he goes and talks to him to try to wrap up this whole storyline that was going on with the judge, which we'll get to here in a second. You know, it's quite obvious that Richard is not happy to see Red. To say he's not happy to see him is a severe understatement because of what Red brought to him. But Red persuades him to help out, saying that the people who need this information will help him. And when he got the chance at the end of the episode, he did ask Harold to, cut that guy a break. He's paid his dues.
The bigger question is that if he's not happy to see him, I'm sure a bunch of other people aren't either. So how the heck did he even get on to the campus? Yeah,
because as he does so well, he just kind of steps out of the shadows. He's just kind of there as the guy's walking down the steps.
So I think we also want to take a look. There was something going around on Facebook and Twitter, and people were kind of up in arms about the magic trick that Lizzie was doing last week with the sonogram photograph. And a lot of people were asking the question of, well, whose sonogram was it? And, I got to thinking, I was like, well, this could be really interesting too, in the sense that, was it the adopted baby that they had the sonogram for? Was it the sonogram for Tom's sister? And then for some reason, Tom had a copy of it. But somebody had actually mentioned of what if it was actually Liz pregnant, and it was the picture of that, and she was ready to tell Tom that she was pregnant, and that's why they weren't going to go through with the adoption. What do you think of that theory?
Well, I guess I just assumed it was your initial statement that it was the sonogram from the baby they were going to adopt. But again, either of those other theories could be true. I mean, they really could be. I'm still going to go with, I think it was the sonogram from the adoption.
That's where I was leading as well. But I'd be really interested to find out, because I still can't remember if there was something said in that pilot episode about Liz not being able to have children. So just use that talkback button in the center of the app and just let us know if if she can't have kids, or if there was something mentioned. You don't have to use the talkback button to answer just the talkback question of the week. We want all the thoughts and theories that all of you guys have, because it really helps out the show and, keeps us thinking and on our toes as we move by week to week, now that stuff's starting to get really good.
Yeah, it's always fantastic to hear everybody's thoughts and theories. It really is.
So let's talk a little bit about our actual bad guy with the time we have left. So the judge. What an interesting concept overall, to have someone who's basically looking out for all the people that are wrongly accused, because we have, lots of stories about capital punishment and capital punishment not actually doing the right thing and killing innocent people. There was that one movie that Kevin Spacey was in, The Life of David Gale.
Right.
Really moving, really touching, and, you kind of feel for these situations. Green Mile was kind of like that. And so, here's this person that's basically looking out for the criminals, because they're not really criminals at the end of the day.
Right. It's like an underlying judicial system within the prison system. And how it basically works is when someone feels they've been wrongly accused, they can, through the inmates, pass along their appeal, and eventually it makes its way to the judge, who kind of makes things right in a real world kind of way. This is all done, back alley conspiracy style, but the FBI researches it. Liz and her group research it and find out that it's very much true.
And the thing that I found a little bit goofy about the judge was that for the most part, it seemed like she was fairly altruistic, in the sense that, she did let this guy who was walking down the road, Mark Hastings, she did let him go because he served his time, but yet at the same time, they execute this guy in the episode, and she's basically now out for retribution, an eye for an eye. And, I don't know how I feel about the fact that you're going to be, truly doing the right thing in the eyes of the law, but then you are going to do the quote unquote Old Testament right thing in the eyes of the law. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. And maybe that's why she was conflicted as well. And that's why she put the cards on the table to basically get caught in the end.
Right, and that's definitely what Red played upon. I mean, that's how he got her to confess. But if it hadn't been for Red showing up, I think Harold would have been gone, because in her mind, she was just carrying out the sentence of the court, even though the court didn't exist. It was just her own vengeance. You know, he made her understand that that's not what she was in it for, and ultimately saved Harold's life.
I do like the kind of play on A Few Good Men in the episode tonight, though, with the whole doctored logs, and got to find this one airman and see if he can actually confess to what actually went down. And then, of course, he confirms that Harold obviously did beat this prisoner before bringing him over. And I like the way that Liz kind of stood her ground, because I think the one thing that was always great about a show like 24 with Jack Bauer, especially towards season 5, when he confronted the president head on and he had that chance to assassinate the president because he did so many bad things, Jack always stuck to the letter of the law and made sure he was a good American. And so I think that's really what came out of Liz's character tonight in this episode, is that, even though Harold's her boss, even though her job could be on the line for challenging authority, especially when we already know we're kind of off the books to begin with, you could end up in a hole somewhere and never be found again. So I think it was really great for her to stand up to her boss and say, hey, give me the truth. Did you actually beat this guy? And Harold confesses.
Yeah, and I thought it was good, too, a little later in the episode when everything is all said and done and they've all been released, Harold pulls her aside and says, basically, I know what I did was wrong, and if you need to take it to the authorities, I understand, which I thought was pretty stand-up of him. We learn quite a bit about him, and then I believe her reply was something along the lines of, I think there's been enough judgment for one day. So she's basically going to let him slide.
Yeah, and I think that was, monuments for Harold's character, right? We kind of been seeing that Harold's been a little squirrely, I guess would be the best word, over the last couple episodes, ever since the post office was breached, trying to find this mole, and then Dianne dying. So I think this kind of puts Harold on the level, and now you can kind of see him, happy that Red's there, hey, it's my secret weapon. He saved us.
Right. And you see the team really coming together. The trust is beginning to build. They're not looking at each other so suspiciously anymore. They're all kind of becoming a cohesive unit.
Which I suppose is a good thing, because if this war is coming, and it sounds like, Jolene and Tom and whoever else is behind them, they really have some plans, because it appears that Jolene not only has been following Red, but she's been following everybody in the post office.
Her tentacles run deep, I fear. She's going to be a much more important player than we know.
So where do you think she goes? Does she have a plan of attack? Does she take out Liz first? Does she take out Myrna first? I mean, where do you think is the best place to strike to break this team up and get a edge in wise to get at Red?
Well, I think Liz is going to end up being the key to everything. If they want to get to Red, they need to get to Liz. And I think that's why they planted Tom where they planted him, because obviously he's got the ability to strike whenever he wants to. He's got complete access to her and can get her in very vulnerable positions. I think the obvious answer is they would go after Liz.
Well, and this is the question I have now, because if they go after Liz, even though Liz and Tom have had their issues about the adoption, and then Tom storming off and not sitting there and talking to her while she's digging in the fridge for stuff, when it comes time and all of a sudden it is revealed that it's all been a farce, is she really going to have feelings for Tom, or is she just going to be like, whatever, dude, you walked out on me, I don't owe you anything? So
right.
Is the feeling part of it lost now that they've had these arguments about the adoption?
Right. And does Tom really give a crap about any of that? I mean, it's obvious he's been put there to do a job. He states it at the end of the episode. Being Liz's husband is his job, and not from a standpoint of taking care of her, but keeping an eye on her and maybe potentially taking her out.
Well, the bigger question I have is that you get $100 if you played a bet that they were going to use Jolene as the song for this evening at some point.
Yep, it was there. Sure enough.
This is where it was perplexing, though, because Tom actually takes off his wedding ring as Jolene's playing in the background. And then he goes up to the room and he's like, no, I can't do this because I love my wife. This internal struggle within Tom kind of leads us to our talkback question for this week, where he's got 2 years invested in this marriage. At least that's what he told Jolene, right? So right. With 2 years invested, will Tom complete his mission? What say you, Dave?
I say he will. I think he is a cold-blooded killer. I really think he is. And I think he will complete his mission, whatever that mission may end up being.
there's part of me that says Tom's got a soft heart somewhere. So I'd like to see him twist a little bit and maybe warn Liz ahead of time and, run off together in the sunset. But I guess I'm always the, good cowboy at the end of the day, saves the day mantra.
The hopeless romantic.
Because I want to blame Jolene at the end of the day, right? She's the one that hired the alchemist to, fake her death. She's the bad person, right? Tom's not the bad person, even though we've thought there was something different about Tom all along. But again, is Tom really a bad person, or is he just mixed up with the wrong people?
And will he go through with whatever it is that they've obviously hired him or put him in place to do?
And with these shows, double agents, always beware.
Yep. Never a good thing.
And you also got another $100 this evening if you had that wrestler would get punched in the face before the first commercial.
You could make a drinking game out of that, couldn't you?
Oh, man. I think I actually wrote that in the notes. I was like, wrestler got punched in the face. Drink up.
And then they didn't even mention it again after that. I mean, it just happened in when they cut to the next scene. He's just kind of standing there. There's not even any, he doesn't like hold his face or, make any reference to the fact that he got cold crocked again.
And nothing about the man from the DC Bureau. Now, there were people that were thinking that, he's actually legit and he's maybe working for Finch or he's working for somebody higher up than Harold. But there was a TV talk back that we got where they suggested that maybe he's just Red's plant, kind of going along with this whole thing about, Red saying the war is coming and Diane's death and the incursion on the post office, that maybe Red's getting his cards in place so he can control the situation. What do you think about that?
I would say that makes perfect sense because what Red does is control. So if he's aware that this war is coming, he's going to have all his soldiers, if you will, aligned in all the proper places.
Well, it's definitely going to be an interesting run as we continue with the Blacklist. Now, unfortunately, no show next week. NBC is airing. I know. Thought we were going to get 9 in a row, but J.J. Abrams' new show, Believe, is going to air in the Blacklist time slot next week before moving to its permanent slot on Sunday nights. So we will have the week off next week, but we will definitely be back in 2 weeks to talk about more things happening on the Blacklist. We want to remind you that the show is not done yet. Those talkback clips, they're coming up next, but you need the free TV Talk app in order to submit a clip. And then, of course, you can hear those clips on the app or, of course, on the TV Talk website at tvtalk.com. And we want you to have the full experience. So get that TV Talk app at tvtalkapp.com right from your iOS or Android device.
And while you're out there surfing around, don't forget to head on over to tvtalk.com/win. And that's where you can enter for our weekly prize drawing. And as well as share with all your friends on Twitter and Facebook that you've been listening to TV Talk and more specifically, TV Talk The Blacklist.
We'll see you in a few weeks. Until then, I'm Troy.
And I'm Dave, still walking in mountains of snow on a highway as we wait for the next episode of The Blacklist.
And now it's time for this week's Talkback Clips.
We hope you enjoyed this special version of The Blacklist Exposed, previously aired on the TV Talk Network and used with permission. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinritz. That's at Troy Heinritz on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinritz.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at H_outsider. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of The Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.